Today's topic, managing burnout. Okay, let me just get into it. It's something that is close to my heart, something that I have personally gone through before, and one where I work very closely with my clients on as well. I feel that burnout is something that is much common than you might actually think it is, right? It can happen to anyone, regardless of your age, of your profession, your background, or even your personal circumstances. And what I realize is that a lot of us, we may not even realize that we are heading towards burnout until we find ourselves like totally flat out, right? Totally overwhelmed, and we are struggling to stay afloat. So in this webinar, I want to be able to walk you through a deeper understanding of what burnout is all about, the important signs to not ignore, and also a burnout recovery roadmap to help you navigate through it better. So a little introduction about myself. I'm a trauma recovery therapist, as well as the founder of the Good Life Counselling, which is a wellness clinic that focuses on holistic healing, helping individuals, go through adversity and trauma. I'm also a podcaster of the podcast, the Good Life Podcast. And, this is something that I started with my then co-host back in 2019 to provide a platform to share about the common struggles that people often tend to go through, and some strategies and tools that people can use to empower themselves so that they start living a more informed and conscious life. So my journey into the space of being a therapist and an advocate of self-empowerment, I would say it was deeply inspired by my own life experiences of navigating through grief, loss, and major transitions. And, it really got me thinking about the ways we cope with all these challenges in life and the support that we need to truly heal and thrive. Through that, I realized that many people tend to often struggle alone, right? Not knowing, what resources that are available out there or where to even turn to for help. So this realization, it, fueled my passion for creating a supportive community, and also incorporating a holistic approach for treatment of mental and emotional health, one that addresses the mind and the body disconnect, which is something that happens a whole lot. And whatever small or big ways you take away from this webinar, my hope is that this is the beginning or the continuation of bigger changes and shifts to come for you in future. So let's get started, shall we? I'm really excited. So I hope all of you are. Yes, burnout. Okay, so when we are talking about burnout, right, what do we actually mean? So this is the, classic definition that you can get out there on Google. It's essentially a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion due to, excessive and prolonged stress. Right? So what we can derive from this definition is that burnout, it is not like an overnight random thing that happens, right? It is due to prolonged and chronic stress that you experience. And burnout is this byproduct of that unresolved chronic stress that you go through. So if I were to illustrate, a typical burnout cycle, this is what it would look like, right? So the tipping point, it always starts with this tipping point. It always starts out with, when, work and expectations are starting to pile up. You can actually feel it, right? And some of the things that I want you to kind of bear in mind on what you start saying to yourself, what you start thinking to yourself, right? It'll be things such as, you might go, oh my God, I have so much to do, but so little time, right? I feel that it's not enough time ever. Or you might go, I am drowning in work. I am drowning in work. Or you might say to yourself, I can't keep up with everything. It is too much. Or you might go, I can't remember the last time I felt happy. I can't remember the last time that I actually relaxed and chill, right? Or you might think, I feel like I'm letting everyone down. I am such a failure. Or you might go, no matter how much I try, it is never good enough. So these are actually signs that I want you to be mindful of, right? Signs that you are actually living beyond your emotional and mental needs. So when you find yourself in this state where, work expectations, they're all like piling up, right? Your to-do list is like, it feels like it's infinity. What happens is that internally, it creates this panic. You go, oh my God, there's so much I need to do, not enough time. And then you try to rush yourself. You're hustling, trying to finish all those tasks. And while you're doing that, you realize, oh my God, I'm so tired. Okay, I need to take a break, right? Okay, then you go take a break. Maybe you watch your favorite Netflix show, or maybe you take a short vacation or something, right? But when you're doing that, and maybe while you're on your bed watching Netflix, your mind wanders and it goes, oh my God, I'm so unproductive right now. I need to be doing work. I need to finish the list of to-dos. And then you panic about taking a break, right? So instead of resting, you push yourself despite feeling tired, despite feeling exhausted. So the exhaustion that you're feeling, it amplifies and intensifies back end. And when this accumulates over time, what happens is that, you start noticing all these health issues that start cropping up, right? Maybe you're like falling sick so often, you're having like, chronic bloating that never seems to end. You're like constantly inflamed, you're having brain fog, and you're seeing that, in work, like wherever you're supposed to perform, you're not performing at your peak, at your optimum. Right? And because you are in this state where you're not feeling like yourself, where you're falling sick all the time, as a result of that, the work that you're supposed to do, it gets put on the back burner, right? Because you're not well enough to be able to attend to all those tasks. So work continues, the task that you need to do, it adds up. And you realize if you look at this cycle, it continues, right? The moment the work that you need to do, it adds up, it piles up, and you're not able to finish it, the panic, the inner panic comes back again, right? And you find that you're just stuck in this vicious cycle of like work continuously never being done, you panicking about work that's never being done, you panicking about even taking a break because you feel as though like, you're not this productive self, and you just get trapped in this cycle all over again. And when you are trapped in this cycle, it is absolutely exhausting, right? Because within how you see your life is like, there is no end in sight. I'm forever stuck in this cycle where I have no choice but to just remain stuck. So I'd like to also share a bit more on, what burnout is through debunking some of the common myths, right? So the first one that I like to start off with is this: burnout is always obvious. So if I could do like a quick poll, maybe you could like type in the chat or something, right? So I have here on the screen two images. One that shows a person who's like, smiling, she's cheerful. While the other picture, number two, it shows someone who's like clearly exhausted. She's like on the ground, flat out, right? So I want to take a moment and consider both images, right? Which one do you think represents burnout? The first image that comes to mind. You can put in the chat box, 1 or 2. 2. Okay, I see lots of 2s coming in. Thank you so much for your participation. Yeah, some say 1. Okay, the days they're both. Yep. Cool. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your inputs. And I would like to share something interesting, right? So if you look at number 2, it is a clear-cut case that someone is exhausted. You cannot deny that. You cannot deny that that person is not exhausted, right? But the very interesting thing about burnout, as what I think some of you have actually even pointed out, that, it could actually be a one that is so true, right? Some of us, we really look like that. We're happy, we're chirpy, we're that, social butterfly going out there, and people look at us, they're like, oh, you seem like you've got your life all put together. You're always this positive one. You're always here for us. You're that, good friend who's able to hear us out and know exactly what to say. But the thing is that burnout is very insidious and it doesn't really have a standard look of what it looks like. And the reason why is this. It's because many of us are actually high functioning burnouts, right? Where externally we appear to be managing our responsibilities really well and effectively, right? We're able to maintain, decent or even high levels of productivity at work, at home, but internally, it's a whole completely different story. Internally, we're experiencing significant stress. We're so exhausted. We're emotionally depleted, right? So therein lies a great disconnect between the public self, what people see of you and what you tend to portray externally, and the private self, right? What happens behind closed doors? What happens when you're all alone, right? And the more you live with this disconnect between the public and the private self, the more it feels like you're living this double life, which can worsen the feelings of inauthenticity and stress, right? So that person that you see out there who's like, constantly smiling, making other people happy and laughing, being bubbly all the time, yes, on one hand, they could actually be that, right? It's congruent to what you're seeing out there. But on the other hand, it could actually just be a mask, right? Masking what is happening on it internally, like all the pain and all the struggle that they're going through, right? And what you want to know about burnout is that it exists on a spectrum. Not everything comes in and is a full-blown, like severe burnout. It always starts from somewhere, right? Because burnout is like a byproduct of accumulated stressors, both small and big, over time that's left unresolved. So it starts off as mild burnout, mild stressors that you go through in life. Maybe on a daily basis, you have some minor relationship conflicts here and there, go through traffic jam, some annoying stranger that's just not nice to you. These sort of things, it could happen on a daily basis, right? And because of that, it does take a toll on your health dealing with all these things. And it can manifest itself as the occasional fatigue, it gets you irritated once in a while. And sometimes you do feel a lack of motivation. But the thing is that, after a while, you're able to kind of bounce back and you're able to be connected to you, be present in your life, right? On the other end of the spectrum is severe burnout. So this is where you see a whole myriad of, issues and symptoms that actually come up full blown, right? So the once in a while fatigue, it turns out to be chronic fatigue. Like even though, how much sleep you get, you're never rested, right? You're having severe anxiety, depression. When you're looking at self-care routine, there seems to be like, negligible or none, right? And you're seeing that your daily functioning, it's also impaired. So, which is why it is so important to be able to look out for the signs of burnout in the early stages, because burnout can be subtle and really sneaky, right? And the faster we're able to intervene in those early stages while we're still kind of like mildly burnt out, it's easier for us to recover and heal compared to where we're in like full-blown crisis mode. It is still possible to recover, but you realize that the recovery time that's required to recover from severe burnout, it takes a much longer time and more work that needs to be done to get you from that state of being activated, overwhelmed, and heightened to a state of feeling more regulated and safe in your body. So let's take a look at all the various signs and ways burnout can actually manifest and creep into your life, right? So there are actually 4 areas that I want to actually highlight today. And burnout can manifest itself in these 4 different areas. So there's the cognitive aspect, the emotional aspect, there's the behavioral aspect, and there's also the physiological aspect, the body aspect. So as I kind of walk you through these signs, I would like to kind of invite you as well to see, which ones of these you connect with, just to keep a mental note of. If you do have a journal, a diary in front of you, could just kind of write it down, okay? So the cognitive aspect. So one of the things that people experience when they are burnout is brain fog, right? Brain fog is essentially the state where you find yourself feeling confused, you cannot focus on things, you can't think clearly, you can't recall or remember things. it feels like your brain is like, stuck in a haze. Lots of haze, lots of fog going on. So it just makes it really uncomfortable, and it's really hard to see clearly, right? Then there's a black and white thinking. Black and white thinking is when you see things in extremes without recognizing any middle ground, right? For example, you might believe that, if in order to do something, it needs to be done perfectly or it should not be done at all, right? And you have catastrophic thinking. So this is where it involves your mind thinking about all the possible worst case scenarios. And then you have personalization, right? This is where you tend to blame yourself for events that's outside of your control. So you tend to take, responsibility for everything that goes wrong, even when it's not your fault. And this results in you feeling a lot of the I am not good enough feeling. And the next is magnification and minimization. So magnification is when you tend to blow things out of proportion, even the small things, right? And minimization is you downplaying a lot of your success and your progress and your achievements. So the next one is cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance occurs when you tend to hold conflicting beliefs or attitudes about yourself, leading to this mental, discomfort that you feel. So for example, you might value that self-care is important to you. It's important to your well-being, right? But what happens in terms of action and behavior-wise, you are skipping meals, you're not going to the gym, you're binging on a lot of junk food, right? And you're overworking yourself. So you see that is the incongruence between what you value, which is I value self-care, but it does not actually translate itself into the action and behavior. So this incongruence, it creates that internal conflict and that frustration because you find that you are not actually practicing what you value most. And the next is poor decision making, right? So this is you finding yourself not being able to like weigh options properly, and it leads to a lot of impulsive decisions, a lot of indecisiveness as well. Increase disorganization. This is where you find yourself just feeling like all over the place, right? You are struggling to keep track of your to-dos, your workspace is in a mess, your schedule is just in a mess, and this is just a reflection of what's going on internally. And the last one, also this list is non-exhaustive. So the last one on this list is dissociation, which is a mental process where you just, completely just detach from your thoughts, your feelings, your sense of self. It feels as though you're like, an observer just looking at yourself from the outside. And this is a very common coping mechanism when it comes to stress. So that's cognitive. We're moving into emotional, right? So for emotional, one of the common things, it's difficulty in regulating emotions. The second is mood irritability. So you find that you're always like, constantly easily annoyed or frustrated, even in the littlest of things, right? Your mood swings is just going all over the place. For instance, at one end, you may be experiencing like, depression, just feeling so low, not wanting to go out. And on the other hand, you're just experiencing so much anxiety, right? Without any clear reason. The next one is a diminished sense of enjoyment. So things that you once enjoy, for example, maybe, you love working out, you love eating, meeting with friends, maybe going for pottery class or something. But all of that, you're noticing that it no longer brings you joy or pleasure anymore, right? The next point is increased cynicism and negativity. So basically, you start seeing the world and yourself as this very negative sort of light. You might start thinking about all the worst case scenarios. You're doubting yourself. You're doubting your competence. The next one is emotional numbness. So again, is a detachment from your emotions. When people were to ask you, how you're feeling today, you might go, oh yeah, I'm fine. Or you might say, nothing. How you're feeling? Nothing, right? So that might be a typical answer. Another one, it's emotional addiction. So this refers to being drawn to certain emotional states. Like for example, you might be addicted to stress. drama, or sadness, right? So addiction to stress might look like taking on too much responsibility, right? Or you find it like it's such a thrill just putting yourself out there in high pressure situations. Addiction to drama, this looks like thriving on chaos and conflict. Addiction to to sadness, sorry, it looks like habitually engaging in behaviors that evoke sadness. For example, suddenly you're, finding yourself listening to all the sad songs on Spotify, and you're like, oh my God, I just want to cry myself every day, right? Okay, next one, behavioral, right? So one of it is through addiction. And again, addiction can be through many ways on how it can actually manifest. Shopping, what people call retail therapy. I mean, going shopping is fine, but when it comes to the point where it is actually, busting your budget and you're spending more than you should and you're just hoarding so much, then that is not unhealthy, right? It can lead to an addiction. So shopping, gambling, food, TV, sex, exercise, basically a lot of things can become addiction, right? Even good things can become an addiction. Another symptom of behavioral burnout is procrastination. So you know that you need to do the important thing, right? It cannot be delayed, but you are finding yourself making up excuses of like, oh, today is not the right time, I'm just too tired, maybe tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes, you're like, okay, this thing cropped up, it's not the perfect moment, maybe tomorrow, right? So you're always delaying your tasks, especially the important ones. Another symptom is social withdrawal, right? So you maybe start canceling social invites, avoiding social interactions because they just feel too much. Another one is increased absenteeism. So your frequency coming to work, it's like reducing. You're always maybe constantly taking, a lot of MC, missing other important commitments as well. And another symptom, it's sleeping a whole lot, sleeping much more than usual. And the last aspect of burnout that I like to talk about is the physiological aspect, right? So I feel that this is something that, happens to a lot of us body-wise, but we tend to just kind of dismiss it as, oh, it's just a one-off thing or it will go away, right? But the thing is that if all these symptoms are something that's persisting, and it's not due to something that's biological, right? If you were to go for your blood work, your annual checkup, and the doctors go, hey, you're fine, then it's not due to a biological issue, but a physiological issue. There's something within the nervous system where it feels as though it cannot relax. So that is why it is manifesting itself through all these physiological issues. So it could be lethargy, your heart just starts beating really fast, sweaty palms, nausea, your sleep cycle is totally disrupted. You're getting like daily headaches, popping Panadols, like, people's business. You're having like, muscle tension and pains out of nowhere, twitches, digestive issues, a chronic bloating, you're falling sick a whole lot, changes in appetite, weight. Suddenly you have like skin rashes that start popping up. Another thing is that you are also very hypersensitive to like, colors, light, touch, sounds, smells, right? So these are some of the very common signs to look out for that might indicate burnout or might indicate you leading down the path of burnout. So if I want to go into the second myth that I would like to debunk, is this. So sometimes you might tell yourself, okay, I'm feeling like exhausted right now. I'm burnout, okay? So I'll just take a vacation. I'll take time off, or maybe I'll go for that facial or spa and I'll be good. I'll be all right. It will cure all my burnout and all my tiredness. The problem with this narrative is that it minimizes the severity of burnout and the underpinnings of what burnout is all about, right? So what we know about burnout is that it's not because of some, surface level minor issue that cropped up overnight. It is from carrying unresolved, prolonged stress and trauma, where the mind and the body feels like there's no no break or no rest on it actually carrying it, right? So someone who's burnout, what happens to the body is that the body lives in this constant state of high alert, like an alarm system inside your body that never goes off. And imagine living that way, right? Imagine if you had an alarm system inside of you that's constantly ringing and you're trying to navigate through your day with an alarm system inside that never goes off. I would imagine that it'll just feel really annoying. And it's really hard, right, for you to focus on the present task because there's this a really annoying bugging sound that's like going, right? So that is what it's like, right? Living with burnout is having this alarm system inside is constantly switched on and it doesn't know how to, be turned off. And taking a vacation, going for a spa or facial, it can temporarily, turn off that alarm system on the inside, giving you some rest, some relief, which is why, when you go for that vacation, you feel good when you're there. You're like, oh my God, I feel so free. I don't think about my stress. I'm all good. Right. However, what people often tend to go through, especially if the root cause of burnout is not addressed, the moment they come back, or maybe even before the plane leaves, lands in Singapore ground, right? You start feeling like your body is like, oh my God, it doesn't feel good. My heart is like, panicking right now. It's beating really fast. So your body is recognizing that, oh no, 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 it doesn't want to come back to real life, right? Because that vacation, it is not a permanent solution to what is really happening in your body, right? So the root cause of burnout needs to be addressed. When you're looking at going for a vacation, going for that spa, these are what I call more band-aid solutions that address the struggle and the pain of burnout, but it doesn't go deep enough to address the root cause of what is contributing to the burnout that you're feeling today, right? If that root cause of burnout is not addressed, you find yourself going back into all the same habits, the same patterns, and that will repeat the burnout cycle all over again, right? So this is the iceberg diagram that I put over here. It depicts what it is like when someone who's going through burnout, right? On the surface, on the iceberg, when you get your vacation, it may remove all the, toxic air and the smelly air. It may look fine. But underneath the burnout, underneath the iceberg, it's where all the stuff lies, right? And going for a vacation does not really address the stuff below the iceberg. So I have a burnout iceberg here just to give you an idea, right? I would like to use this to illustrate burnout, right? So if you think about a burnout, you see there's the part that's above the waterline and the part that is below the waterline. So where you see that little person on the boat there, imagine that's you there. You're just seated there, right? On the water level. And what you can see are the birds and also the iceberg that's above the waterline. So this is very similar to the struggles that you tend to go through in life. Like, for example, you struggle with, a constant comparison of yourself with other people. You're a perfectionist, you're struggling with depression, anxiety, you have addiction issues. These are what we call the presenting issues that are actually above the waterline because you're aware of it. You can see it. Other people can also see it, right? And what happens is that the trap that we fall into is that we tend to just focus on the visible symptoms, right? There are these thoughts and these behaviors that are easily noticed by ourselves and other people. And while these symptoms are, easier to actually recognize, the real challenge is actually diving down beneath the waterline, which is actually the crust and the core of what keeps that burnout iceberg very much alive, right? So if you were to look at below the waterline, this is what people don't see. This is what oftentimes, like, even you might not be aware of, that there are these things that are still there, lingering around in your system in which your body is still remembering, right? The reason why, for instance, you keep going into these cycles of panic attacks, depression, intrusive thoughts is because your body is still holding on to unresolved trauma and chronic stress, right? Your body remembers the trauma and stress, even if your mind tries to move on from it, right? So, for instance, if you have experienced bullying as a kid, right? So maybe it could be like 5, 6 year old you. That's pretty young, right? You might think that, oh, that's so young, that little kid might not remember. But the thing is that, okay, the mind might forget about the full details of what really happened, but the body keeps track of the sensations and what it felt like to be bullied, right? So the body might still be holding on to the fear of being ostracized, right? It might be holding on to the memory of being ridiculed and mocked and being made to be feel like, he or she is not good enough, right? So all of these sensations, the memories, they are stored here at a very deep cellular level in the body, which is why when we're talking about trying to, navigate through struggles like burnout, depression, anxiety, it's not easy to just go in and be like, okay, here's some meds, right? Here's a vacation. There you go. You'll get better. You'll get fine. It's not enough, right? Because all of that does not actually address the stored stress and trauma, the sensations within the body. And that brings me to the fun part, how to navigate burnout, right? Okay, so what I have here is a burnout recovery map for you, right? And it focuses on a bottom-up approach, starting from the body awareness, going on to the emotional awareness, and I'm recovering on boundary setting as well. So a bottom-up approach, what it means is that it emphasizes starting with the body, right? Because what I shared earlier is that how burnout even manifests or even start off is because there's a lot of these unresolved trauma that is stored and stuck in the body. And how it works is that a majority of information, it travels from the body to the mind. So if the body is still remembering all the past trauma, is still remembering the 5-year-old or 6-year-old you who got bullied, who got ostracized, who got rejected and abandoned, right? No amount of like positive affirmations or mantras is going to help your body to feel safe in itself, right? So the bottom-up approach, it emphasizes starting with the body to address and release stored stress and trauma. So by focusing on the physical manifestations of burnout first, it helps to create a strong foundation for overall recovery, right? So this is a little quote that I found by one of the trauma educators, and she shared this, and it's something that I would like to share with you as well. And it goes like this: when our internal system cannot find safety through the body, it tries to find safety through the mind. And how can the mind find safety? Through control, through rumination, over worrying, over analyzing, and comparing of the self with others. So to change the fearful and racing mind, we need to change the center of our safety from the mind to the body. Then the mind also settles. So it might be tempting, right? Whenever you're having those, thoughts, racing thoughts, it might be tempting to go straight to fixing the mind, straight into fixing, your negative thoughts. But if the body is still sensing threat and danger, if the body does not feel safe wherever it is right now, no amount of reframing is going to help you feel better, right? So when you look at symptoms like depression, anxiety, panic, compulsions, and addictions, they are considered bottom-up symptoms and reactions that actually come from a more primitive, non-conscious part of your mind. And for us to be able to engage the subconscious, the non-conscious part of our mind, remember when I talked about the iceberg, the stuff that is below the waterline, that is the part that is the non-conscious part, right? For us to engage that part, it is really important for us to go back to where these sensations and these memories of the pain and trauma are stored, and that is within the body. So I'd like to start it with a little body exercise, and this is called ground through the body. So the objective of this exercise is for you to get a little know what's going on internally in our bodies, right? I feel that a lot of times we're so used spending time up here in the mind. We're very good intellectualizers. We are good at analyzing things, rationalizing things. But when it comes to like feeling, we're like, oh, whoa, what is that? Or I don't want to do that, right? So this exercise, it invites you into that space of giving your body that permission to kind of tune in to what's going on here in your body, right? To help you to identify parts of you that feel safe, parts of you that feel activated or triggered, and to use the body as a way to self-regulate and to reconnect yourself with your thoughts, with your emotions, sensations, and behaviors, right? And when you're able to do this, to create that safe reconnection with your body, it helps to create a more present sense of self. So let's get into it. So the first part of this work, it involves using the intelligence of your body, right? To recognize whether you're feeling drained, depleted, okay, regulated, dysregulated, right? And what we want to do is, before going into any form of exercise, is to find a baseline, right? So this begins with understanding what is your baseline. What is your current status right now? Just like if you were to use like a GPS, you need to input two things, right? Your current location and your destination. If you're just fixated on the destination of like, okay, I want to be there, but you don't want to let GPS know on where you are right now, the GPS won't actually give you the paths that you can explore to take for yourself, right? So it's the same thing on navigating our bodies through from one place to the next. We need to first and foremost have an understanding of where we are right now. Right, so that firstly, it helps us to practice self-acceptance of understanding where we are, where our body is at. And number two, it also gives you a benchmark from which you can actually compare how you're doing over time, right? And knowing, when you're feeling that sense of offness and knowing when to come back to that sense of balance, right? So what I'd like to invite you to do for this exercise is to allow yourself to just get comfortable in your spot right now, wherever you are right now, just to allow yourself to get comfortable in your spot right now. So you could do this either with your eyes open or closed. And what I'd like to invite you to do is to take a couple of deep breaths, right? Inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. And doing this one more time, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. And I'd like you to start by bringing your attention to your feet, noticing any sensations down there. And we're going to do like a body scan where we start from the feet. I'm going to be gradually moving it up, right, to your legs, and allowing yourself to bring your attention as though you're having a scanner right now, right? Moving up slowly to your torso, going to your arms and to your head. And as you're doing this body scan exercise, just observing whether there are any tensions, areas of tension or areas of relaxation. And just seeing yourself as this observer, an observer without judgment. And as you allow yourself to scan each part of your body, just simply notice how it feels, right? You're not there to want to change or fix anything, but just notice. what's going on in your body right now. And after you complete the scan, take a moment to recognize the overall state of your body right now. So this is your baseline. And I would like to get you to acknowledge it without judgment and to just take a mental note that this is where you are right now, right? So on the slide, I do have, a couple of things that I wrote down. And the question that you can ask yourself is, how's my body feeling today after doing that scan, right? So after doing that scan, just noticing which ones of these actually apply to you, right? Is it feeling tired, irritated, emotional? Does it feel like it has a sensory overload right now? Does it feel numb, bored, anxious, neutral? Does it feel good? Does it feel overjoyed? So just taking a mental note, or if you have a journal or diary in front of you, just kind of write down what your body is feeling right now. The second part of this work is what we call the body inquiry, right? So after doing that body scan to find your baseline, we want to be able to go into this process to find out a bit more on what's going on internally, to inquire, to get a bit more information. And before we begin the body inquiry process, it's important to recognize that this exercise can bring up intense emotions and sensations. And, while this is normal, a normal part of, connecting, especially this is your first time, it might feel a bit overwhelming for some of you. So if at any point in time, during this exercise, you feel, a bit uncomfortable, distressed, or overwhelmed, you have the absolute right to pause or opt out of the exercise, right? There's no pressure to continue if it feels too much for you, right? So whenever you're ready, I would like you to begin by tuning in to your physical sensations and to ask yourself this question: what do I sense? What I sense in my physical body right now? So maybe it could be, my chest feels tight, or my stomach feels queasy, knotted, right? And the next question is to connect with your emotional body, to ask yourself, what do I feel? So this involves acknowledging the emotions that are present in your physical sensations. For instance, you might feel, I feel a heavy burden on my chest, like the weight of the whole world is on me. And next, I'd like you to reflect on your thoughts and beliefs. So you could ask yourself, what do I believe? This step helps you to identify the stories and the thoughts contributing to your emotional and physical state, right? So maybe what comes up is, I've been carrying so much pain on my own because no one out there understands what I am going through. There's just so much pain of betrayal from the people that I have trusted. And it feels so lonely going through this. And I don't know who to trust anymore, right? So as you're noticing, what is coming up for you as you're inquiring within, I would like to invite you to just stay with whatever is coming up for you right now, right? Notice what your body and mind wants to express as you are allowing yourself to just stay for a little bit, right, with what is coming up. For instance, you might have an urge to want to cry, right? You feel that urge to want to cry. And allow yourself to stay with that feeling. And if it's good for you, to allow those tears to flow if they come. So this process of staying present with your sensations, your emotions and thoughts, it can help to really open the doors to facilitate deep healing and self-awareness to happen. And as you're doing this exercise of going within, of trying to connect with what's going on in your body, right? You might experience, intrusive thoughts that's coming in, distractions that's coming in, that's trying to pull you away from this experience and this exercise of focusing in. So what I have here on the slide is something that you can remind yourself and something that you can see to these intrusive thoughts and parts that's coming in, that's trying to pull you away, from focusing in. So a reminder to yourself, you could tell yourself, okay, I am going to take a moment to do nothing but be with my body and observe what it does. And as I do this, I may notice some thoughts, some feelings trying to take my attention away. When this happens, I will gently acknowledge these parts and ask for their permission to give me some space, right? And a conversation that you can have with these parts that you are hearing, it could be, hello, the part that's intruding, I see you, right? And I understand you may have something important to share, but right now I'm focusing on connecting with my body. So can you give me some space for a little while? I promise I will return to listen to you soon, right? And after you say this, just allow those parts that's coming in some time to internalize this and see what is the response. When those parts do back away, thank them for giving you the space to do this. But if you find that there is still that resistance of like, oh, I don't want to back down, I want to pull you away from doing this. This is too boring. What is this? Right? You might hear that. And then it's okay. Just sit with that resistance as well. Right? It means it might be an indicator that as of right now, your body is not yet ready to go there into that space. And that's okay. And this is very important information that you want to gather, you want to know more about, because it gives you insights on how ready your body is and the level of capacity that your body currently has right now. So the third part to this grounding exercise, it's the compassionate self-touch, right? So a lot of times when we are so disconnected from our own bodies, we might even, mislook on what it feels like to touch our own hands, like our fingers, our hands. What does it feel like to feel the squeeze of the hand against, our arms, right? Because we're just so disconnected from what is happening on the inside because it holds so much pain. So this part, it gives your body that opportunity to get that physical safety touch from you. So what you can do is, I'd like to invite you to kind of just rub both of your hands together in this motion right now, until you feel that warmth that's coming through the palms, right? So just keep doing this until you feel that warmth coming through. And when you're ready, when you feel that's enough warmth over here in the palms, I'd like you to just kind of choose either one of your hands and place one of your hands on the body area that's requiring that support right now. So perhaps it might be the chest that you're feeling that it's a bit unsettled. So just placing the palm that you're feeling the warmth across that part of your body, right? This part here. Having direct contact of your palm to that part that's requiring a bit of that compassion and support from you right now. And take, a deep inhale again through your nose and slowly exhale. And imagining that warmth that you have over there from your palm as you're breathing in that warmth connection from your palm to your body area, right? So allow your body to just sit with that sensation and that feeling right now of connecting with the warmth from your palm to that part of your body and notice what it feels like to have that touch there. Notice what it feels like to have that touch kind of ground you, to bring you back here in this room, in this space, in the here and now. And you could even send a message of validation to that part of your body, right? It could be something along the lines of saying, I hear your pain. You know, it's been such a challenging one for you, having to go through all of that for the past many years. I know you're carrying so much, right? And if you don't want to, send a message, just being silent, just having a presence there with this part of your body that you're noticing that's carrying a bit of that tension, right? And if this part is ready to talk, to tell you a bit of what's going on and what is it holding, you could even ask this part, on what it needs to feel more supported right now, right? And maybe that part might respond, oh, I need a break. I'm just so tired from all the hustling and the running and the doing. I just need some space from everything, from everyone. I just need, I need someone to talk to. I need someone who understands what I'm going through, right? So your role, it's really being an observer, coming in to listen in on what is going on inside of you. And the last part to this exercise is the post-reflection exercise. So after completing the anchoring, grounding exercise, take a moment to reflect on how you feel compared to your baseline, right? Scan your body to notice whether there's any subtle changes or any big shifts that you're noticing. How are you feeling right now compared to before you started? And you could actually document it, right, in order for you to track how you're actually feeling over time. And the last part to this is to practice the art of expressing gratitude to your body for giving you the space to anchor and to reflect. Yeah. So this is an exercise that you can try in your own free time, when you feel the need to attend to something that's on the inside. It's a great exercise to actually ground you, to reorient you back into the present moment just by using the body, just by attending to the sensation. Sometimes we might not have words to even articulate our struggles and our pain, but we know that we're feeling something on the inside in the body, right? So you can use that as a starting point. Instead of using words, use your body sensations, work with that. And then the moment you're able to really focus in on that part, coming in from a lens of wanting to listen, to sit with and to help, that part that is holding on to that tension will tell you its story on what it is going through and what pain it is carrying on the inside. Right? So here are some tips for you to, take note of when you're doing this. So especially if you're new to this, it's good to just start in short durations, 3 to 5 minutes. You could put a timer on, your phone to know that, okay, 5 minutes it is up. And as you, build that body's capacity to be with the stillness of what's going on inside, you can gradually actually increase this time. The second part is don't doze off, right? Make sure it's very tempting as you're doing this. There might be cases where you're like, oh my God, I'm getting so sleepy. You might actually doze off. But the key with this is to make sure that you are here, you're present. You're conscious with these parts inside of you that's coming up, right? And the third part is make sure that you're in a safe, comfortable place when you're practicing this with no disturbances. And how you use this exercise, this body regulation, body anchoring exercise, is to see it as part of your self-care routine, right? Like, for example, someone showering, brushing their teeth, it is all part of self-care routine to make sure that, that level of hygiene is maintained. So when we're talking about body anchoring, body connecting, body safety, it is part of your hygiene routine as well, right? Maybe not like physical, but it's, dealing with mental and emotional, right? And another thing to note is to view the body with kindness and perspective, from a perspective of curiosity, right? Because the moment you come in with the energy of like, oh my God, this is so annoying, right? The moment you're not open to it, the body can sense that resistance and it will immediately contract and shut off. And even if it has, all the wisdom on the inside, it wouldn't want to let you in to let you know on what is going through right now, right? Another thing is to document the shifts that you're seeing every time you're doing this practice. Another tip is it is normal if you feel uncomfortable or you feel that it's totally awkward doing this, especially if this is like your first time, delving into the realm of body awareness, somatic work, right? Because I feel that a lot of us, we've been brought up in environments where we just think through a lot of things, even our feelings, right? We're thinking through our feelings, and that is why it creates a lot of issues, right? There's a reason why it's a feeling and it's not a thinking, right? When we're using the same ways to deal with our emotions and our thinking and our pain, it creates an outcome that's not desirable for us. So when we're trying this body awareness work for the very first time, do expect your body to naturally feel resistant to it. But what I would actually recommend is to be patient with the process, right? To trust the process and to just be open to it. The next thing is consistency is key. Like just like if you want to, build muscle, if you have a certain goal of, looking this physique, you have to make sure that you're consistently training, right? You cannot be just working out just once a year and expecting yourself to stay in shape. And it's the same thing with body connection, regulating our emotions, getting to know our body. It cannot be something that we practice only like once in a while or only when we're crisis. The best time to actually practice this exercise of grounding and feeling and tuning to what's going on is actually those times where you're actually okay, you're regulated, you're calm, and you don't feel like activated or triggered, right? Because you do have more inner resource and bandwidth to attend to what's going on internally compared to when you are in super crisis mode. And the last tip for this is if you are trying this out on your own and you're like, oh my God, I'm still so lost. It's okay to seek out professional support, right? Because there are professionals like for myself who are trained in doing this work and we're able to kind of bring you through the whole process as well. So that concludes the body work exercise. I'm going to move into the second part of the burnout recovery map, and that is emotions. Okay, so emotional awareness. And to make this concept more relatable and engaging, I'd like to draw inspiration from the movie Inside Out. Okay, so for those who have not watched it, it is a wonderful film that personifies our emotions as characters living inside our minds, and each one, playing a unique role in how we respond to life's events. So the main character that you can see here, and in the movie as well, is Riley, right? She's that girl, Fart, right? And you can see all those little cartoon characters. Those are those emotions that's found in Riley, emotional parts that exist within Riley. So the thing that I would like you to know about emotions is that when they come up, it's actually their sign of trying to tell you, hey, pay attention to me. I've got something that I want to tell you, right? So it's important to be able to cultivate a healthy internal dialogue with all these emotions. And that boils down to us learning the language of emotions. The thing with emotions is that they are not just these random things that pop up from nowhere with no context, right? They don't just bug us from nowhere. They come to us because of a specific reason of carrying a specific message that wants us to hear it, right? So they are important parts of our internal system, each emotion serving a very important function. And what we want to achieve at the end of the day is to be able to have that internal dialogue with all these emotions instead of seeing them as the enemy that we want to kind of just shoo away. Okay? So suppressed emotions, they will find their way back to you. They will, okay? They will find very sneaky, very creative ways to find their way back to you to make sure that their message is heard loud and clear. So this exercise I'll be bringing you through, the objectives of it is to help you to recognize, to differentiate the various internal emotional parts inside of you. What are their roles? What are their fears? Help you foster a sense of cooperation and balance among the different parts so that internally you feel that all of them, they're in sync, right? You don't have these parts that are constantly in conflict with each other, which causes this tug of war that you feel on the inside. And the third is the more these parts within you are deconflicted and they are unburdened of the baggage that they're all carrying on the inside, the more you are free to be who you are, and the more these emotions are free to be who they are, right? And through that, it helps you to get a step closer to tap into your core, authentic self, which is the part that unlocks amazing things, right? Things like compassion, curiosity, connectedness, calmness, and confidence. So let's get into it. So this exercise is going to bring you through on how to work through conflicting emotions. So as at the start of the webinar, I know some of you shared emotions that you are, going through, you tend to feel, right? And, some of it comes up conflicting, right? There's joy, there's sadness as well. So you're like, okay, how do we work both? They seem to be, two different things going in two different directions, right? So I'm going to give you an example on how to work through conflicting emotions. And what I'd like you to know is that it is very common for more than one emotion to come up in a person at the same time, because our emotional landscape is very complex, right? And so because of that, we can experience a blend of feelings in response to different situations. So for instance, joy and anxiety can come up in a person. And this is what might happen, right? So for example, you have the scenario where you received a compliment from a boss. So joy comes in and go, oh my God, yay, you received a compliment on the great work, great job. Let's focus on the positives, right? And what joy pushes you to do is that, she wants you to go and celebrate your achievement. She wants you to shout out to the world that, hey, you're such a good worker. You did such a great job, right? She wants you to do that. However, at the same time, you might experience anxiety coming in, right? Anxiety might chime in and go like, oh my God, what if I can't keep up to this level of performance? What if I fail, right? What if this raises expectations too high and I cannot fulfill it? Then I'll look like such a loser. I'll look like such a weakling, right? So this dynamic, it creates something on the inside in the body. When these emotions come up and they go in conflict, immediately your body is sensing something. Maybe, right, you might be feeling tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, and it leads to a lot of downward spiral of a lot of things that's going on in your body. So what to do when you're facing these conflicting, polarizing emotions that's telling you two different messages, pulling you in two different directions? So I have a little simplified framework here that you can explore on how to go about working with emotions, conflicting emotions when they come up, right? So I want you to imagine yourself as this internal helpline. When these conflicting emotions come up, I want you to imagine that you have this internal helpline, coming in to see, okay, what's going on here, right? So the first step, it's always about recognizing and acknowledging both emotions, right? Say to yourself, okay, I feel joy from the compliment, but I also feel anxiety about the future expectations. And it is okay for both emotions to coexist right now. So the next part is about, okay, holding space for both emotions. Something that you can actually do is, how will you visualize joy? Where would it reside in your body? Perhaps, you might feel like it's this warm, bright light that sits in your face. That's joy to you, right? And then visualize anxiety next. How would you visualize anxiety? Maybe what comes up is, it's this dark, throbbing pain, this feeling that sits right in my chest. It's just so heavy over here, right? So notice that. Notice what you're actually seeing and visualizing. And again, seeing yourself as this observer, just allowing both to exist without pushing one away. The next thing that I want you to explore is just having a dialogue with these emotions. So maybe you can ask Joy, okay, what message do you have for me? Right, Joy? And Joy might say, hey, celebrate your hard work, right? Recognize your accomplishments. You deserve it. And then go to anxiety and go, okay, what do you need from me? Anxiety might respond, I need a lot of reassurance that you can handle future challenges and that you're not going to fail, right? So the next thing is about integrating these emotions. Imagine creating a space within yourself where both joy and anxiety can coexist. And I want you to visualize a space as, a balanced environment where both emotions are acknowledged and respected. What would that actually look like on the inside? Maybe you could visualize it or even draw it on paper. And the last part is about reflecting on this experience. Take a few deep breaths, right? Allow yourself to settle in and reflect on how it feels like to just have both emotions that are polarizing and different to just coexist without you, inside of you, right? Where they are just there, respectfully, just there, and not going head on against each other. And recognizing that both emotions have valuable message and that it's okay to feel them both simultaneously. So I'm just recognizing the time that I have right now. I just want to make sure that I have time to just cover the boundaries very quickly. Time really do pass really fast. So boundaries, I'm going to move on very quickly on boundary setting because this is also another very important part. In short, boundaries are these limits that we set for ourselves and others to protect our well-being. So we need that in place in order for us to know the parameter that we're working with, right? So if you look at some of these statements, some of these thoughts, see whether these are things that come up for you every time when it comes to having to set boundaries. Maybe you might go, oh my God, boundaries is scary because if I will do that, people won't like me. Or, it is selfish for me to set boundaries, right? So just notice the kind of narratives that keep coming up for you every time you see yourself having to set a boundary. So I've broken it up into 3 parts to this, and it includes having self-reflection. So self-reflection is where you understand and have an insight into currently right now, what are your boundaries? Are there even boundaries in place? Are there parts in your life that you feel as though, you're feeling violated, overwhelmed? Identify where are those aspects in your life that you feel you have that violation, right? The second part to this is about identifying what are your needs and what are your limits. So it could be in various aspects in your life, for example, in work, relationships, finance, leisure, recreation. For example, when it comes to work, asking yourself, okay, what do I need at work to feel fulfilled, recognized, and balanced? So really sit down to reflect on these aspects of your life right now. And the third part to this is about creating that plan, right? After you reflect, you need to have a plan on what are the things that you want to take. What are the steps that you want to start implementing to create that change in your life? So it could be having, micro self-care opportunities for yourself, telling yourself, okay, I'm going to seek help if I'm unsure. And then another thing that I want to talk about is this matrix right here. Right? So I think time is running up really fast, but this is something that I would like you to kind of research and read up a bit more on. And I feel that this is a great tool, especially if you are the kind of person where you have like so many stuff on your to-do list, right? And you're like, everything is just like important and urgent and everything needs to be done now. This matrix is a good way for you to start really prioritizing and deprioritizing your tasks that you need to do in life. So this is something that I'll invite you to explore on your own. And the last part about this is reimagining your beliefs. So this is about understanding, okay, what is your boundary? What is the thought that often accompanies implementing that boundary, and what is a positive possibility to replace this challenging thought. So this is really about helping you to challenge your current thought process when it comes to thinking about enforcing that boundary. And these are just some, additional ways on how, especially if you're a people pleaser, you're finding it so hard to, say no. I know you're always like, oh yeah, okay, can. If your boss asks you, okay, do this, you're like, oh yep, even though you're like so burnt out, I'm like, yes, can, right? So there are many ways on how you can buy some time, right, to figure out what you want to actually decide. There are many ways on how you can say no. So these are some ways that you can actually explore. You can take a screenshot of this to explore on how you can go about buying some time, and saying no in a respectful way without actually saying no. Okay. And here are some wonderful resources, books that you can also explore in your own free time that gives you a bit more understanding of the self, trauma, body awareness work, emotions, boundaries. And I do offer a free discovery call. If this work is something that speaks to you, you'd like to explore more and deep dive on how therapy can benefit you, you can actually explore hopping on a discovery call with me, where it's an opportunity for me to share a bit more on how I go about working with my clients, and for you to understand how, therapy can be a good fit for you. So this is like my parting words before I end my webinar. Our time passes really fast.